Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Season Ticket Holders. I'm your host, Dane Lillingstone, and I'm here with a very special guest in studio today. He is the star of the Pixar film franchise Toy Story, a mad Queensland and Brisbane Broncos fan despite being born in Sydney. He is my 9-week-old toy caboodle, Woody. Woody, welcome to the show, mate. How are you? He's in the crate beside me. He's doing okay. He can't wait to share his thoughts with you today. Just solo today for me, guys. I did want to get straight into it because the theme of this show is how did it all go so wrong for Queensland? And when I say Queensland, I mean the Broncos, Titans, and the completely embarrassed Cowboys going down the third biggest scoreline in rugby league in Australia history. And of course, the Broncos title hopes officially now dead. I know I've spoken the last 2 weeks about the hope. It was 7 in a row. They could have done it. It was 6 in a row. It didn't really matter in the end because they absolutely suck at the moment. Pretty pathetic performance against the Knights. I have pretty strong feelings about that. It's really just a sign of all things that went wrong. I'll get into that very shortly. And the Cowboys, as I mentioned, getting 82 points put on them by the Roosters and the Gold Coast Titans. It was supposed to be a new era, and while they've shown glimpses, still really just not good enough for them as well. So pretty disappointing. 3 teams there now outside the 8. Cowboys do have a chance to still go through. They're still tied for 8th spot, but it's going to be a tight battle with Rabbitohs and Bulldogs, and what are the mental scarrings going to be from that loss? And of course, the Dolphins in line for their finals appearance. We'll get to them in another episode. I'm just going to talk about the failure of Queensland, of course, coming on the Origin series as well. Firstly, the Broncos. The title hopes officially over, going down 30-6 to the Newcastle Knights on Saturday night. A team missing Dylan Lucas, Dylan Brown. Of course, they did get Kalen Ponga back, and they put on an absolute defensive clinic. The Broncos had plenty of chances just from watching the game. Look, everyone's spoken about what's went wrong, Michael Maguire, all types of things, and their defense, obviously, they're leaking points. They don't have the same grit. Let's not forget they lost Ben Teo, their defensive coach, just weeks into the season after a dispute with Michael Maguire. But the thing that I don't think is getting talked about enough is that the Broncos' attack is what's really letting them down in 2026. This was never a team built on defense. It was a team that could score quickly and score a lot of points in quick succession and just put a roll on teams. We saw that in every single finals game of the back end of 2025, that run to the grand final. They could do it. They did it throughout the season, even that run they had in the last part of the regular season, based on the likes of just incredible form of Reece Walsh. Ezra Mann was still there pulling strings and in so much better form than he has been this year. Payne Haas-Carrigan setting the platform, and all their outside backs were absolutely flying. It's just not the case this year at the moment. They've got the talent out wide with Staggs and Dean Mariner. Ben Hunt obviously came into that game. Of course, Adam Reynolds and Xavier Willison went down in the first 5-6 minutes against the Knights. That put them on the back foot, but there really is just no excuse. That was a pretty much full-strength Broncos team. If you take away Brendan Priakora and Corey Jensen, who's unfortunately had to retire due to blood clots, thoughts and prayers out with him. Terrible news. He was one of the most underrated players on their run to the Premiership last year and has been missing for the majority of this season. He was the starting prop alongside Payne Haas, and really we miss his experience, his punch, his go forward. He's been a massive blow. But that team they rolled out on Saturday night, the Broncos went in as favourites at Suncorp Stadium at home. As mentioned, the Knights losing 2 of their very best players going down. Kalen Ponga does come back. But what they threw up there really was just pathetic. I just don't really know how else to put that performance. I've seen some comments post-match of Katoni Staggs and Paddy Carrigan saying, look, it's nothing about Madge, nothing about outside noise. This is on us. But it's just really, it needs to be studied just how far this Broncos team has dropped off in 2026. I know we've talked about biblical proportions and the injury list that they've had, but on Saturday night against the Knights, they had the majority of their first squad team. They had all of their backs. They weren't missing a single back. Their starting halves combination, their superstar in Reece Walsh. They dropped Gemmet Shibasaki, hasn't been informed, but they had punch everywhere. Most of their forwards, their Carrigans there, Haas was there. Still got Jordan Ricky as well, and they just couldn't do it. Looking at these stats, they completed at 65%, which is not going to win you NRL games. Knights at 85%. Newcastle made about 400 more meters, 10 line breaks to 3. The scariest stat for me about this Broncos team, and like I said, I think attack has been their biggest Achilles heel this year. They've scored just 345 points. Only the Dragons have scored less. Since round 15, they've won one game and only scored 70 points. I don't know how that happens. We know that Reece Walsh has been in and out, up and down form. But how can this team that was built on attack in 2025 under Michael Maguire in his first year completely fall away? Adam Reynolds should have retired after last year. I think we know that. Ben Hunt hasn't really contributed, and Ezra Mam is a shadow of his former self right now. Reece Walsh is showing glimpses. He's trying his hard at every week. But again, look what he did to Dominic Young, pulling his hair. An absolute idiot. What was he thinking on Saturday night? They're going to get someone sent off. Golden opportunity for the Broncos to get back in the game after conceding a couple tries early. Reynolds lets in the first try, by the way, before he gets off for his HIA. He just gives it away. I'm sitting there on the couch as a Broncos fan, just going, what the hell are you doing? How much worse can this get? If that doesn't sum up our season, I don't know what does. There's just these silly, stupid brain snaps that seem to just cost them the game. They're not doing the simple things right. The simple thing is, for you and I, and most people watching at home, don't grab his hair. It's so simple. You've just cost your team now. You're down, you equal the playing field 12 all, and they couldn't score a point. It was really just foul what they threw up. A terrible performance. Take nothing away from the Knights. They defended really well, but the Broncos were throwing everything that they possibly had. But the real big worry for me was watching this Broncos team attack at home, the backs against the wall, knowing that they still had a slight outside chance of defending their title and going on this incredible, unlikely run. But there was still a sniff. There was still a chance with most of their starting team there. Albeit the two guys going down early, but they still got a guy like Ben Hunt who can just come in starting into the halves. You don't really lose much there with Adam Reynolds. Xavier Willison, you can't replace. That was a big blow. But then for them just to go in and not be able to score a point, to not be able to attack, like their attack was atrocious. It wasn't good. Every time they had the ball inside the 20 and they had their chances, they never looked like scoring. I don't know how they can regress that far in the space of one season. Hey, can you just tell me, one thing I've noticed, has one single player in this Brisbane Broncos team improved this year outside of Xavier Willison? Walsh has shown glimpses. He hasn't been consistent, and I'd argue he's just pretty much thrown up a lot of what he did last year without having the incredible results off the back of it. Staggs was really good earlier in the year. Obviously ran his way all the way up to Origin selection, but he's been quiet post-Origin. They've had to hand big minutes to guys like Ben Tolte, VJ Semu, and Preston Rickey, who would be nowhere near the starting team in most sides. They've all started at different points now this year. And do not get me started on Gemmet Shibasaki. Incredible 2025. Had one of the biggest flash in a pan seasons you will ever see. First player in history of Origin to go from a training trial to playing in Origin. Ends up playing for Australia as well. Deserved every single rep honour last year that he got. And could you imagine, of course, he's now signed with Perth for next year, the Perth Bears. Could you imagine if we found that information out last year? Because there was rumours always that Broncos wouldn't be able to afford him. They wouldn't be able to bump up the contract to keep him. Could you imagine if we found out he was leaving last year? There would be an uproar. There would be a mutiny. The signing came and gone. No one cares. I can tell you the care factor is zero from a Brisbane Broncos point of view because he has been that far out of form. He's now, of course, been dropped, but he's been an absolute shadow of himself last year. I just don't see how so many players have regressed, and he has to be the biggest one that's regressed in 2026. I don't know how they have done it, but I'm glad that Brisbane has shown him the door because they do need to make changes, and Shibasaki has just not been there. Now, Payne Haas and Paddy Carrigan can't do it all on their own, and of course, Payne Haas is leaving at the end of the year, but they look a little bit cooked from having to try and carry this team every week. Willison has been massive. Those three have been like heads and shoulders above every other single forward in that pack. But why hasn't management been able to blood a single new guy this year? Everyone who's come up has filled a gap, but they've come in and out. There was Coates' brother who came in and out. There's Preston Rickey who got injured, but he was starting. He was a starting prop. I don't think he really deserved that spot, but they don't have anyone else. The depth in the forward is so shot right now. Why has no one really come up and stepped and had a bit of a breakout season this year? Looking back, it is shocking. You've had so many injuries, the perfect chance to unearth a talent. I remember Tristan Saylor a few seasons ago when Walsh is out, he comes up and stands up. But this year, no one's done that. I just don't really understand undermatch how this has happened. And I have to say that does have to go back to coaching. Depth-wise, if we're looking ahead now, because the season is over, thank God, I'm going to stop planning my weekends around watching these Brisbane Broncos games because it's only going to get worse in a battle of the Brisbane against the Dolphins side who's red hot and would love to smash Brisbane at a packed out Suncorp Stadium on Saturday night. And I think there's a good chance that's exactly what's going to happen. They lose Grant Anderson, Jesse Arthurs, Corey Jensen, of course, retired. Adam Reynolds follows him as well, and Gemmet Shibasaki to Perth. Now, they're bringing in Mitch Barnett, who's 33 next year. Dane Gagai, Queensland legend, started his career at the Broncos. He's 36 next year. And Jonah Pezzett, who's supposed to fill this hole that Adam Reynolds is going to leave. He's 24 next year, in and out of injury, signing this 1-year stopgap deal for Parramatta. Limited opportunities. We don't really know. The jury is completely out on if he's a starting first grade half. And it looks like they've signed Sean Bloor as well. That's probably the best, well, but alongside Mitch Barnett, the best pickup because they do obviously need to fill this hole in their second row, because right now it's Jordan Ricky and Brendan Piacora who keeps going through repeated head issues, and then it's daylight second. There is not a third second rower right now in this team that deserves to be playing in the NRL. So that's a real shame. Now, Reynolds goes down with the HIA. I believe he misses this weekend. I'd be giving Tom Duffy a go. Ben Hunt is, of course, there, but why not just leave Ben Hunt as the super sub off the bench? I think Tom Duffy is the future. He's the guy who's going to battle Jonah Pezzett to partner Ezra Mam. I would be arguing to give Tom Duffy a go now. Let him finish out the next 4 or 5 weeks of the season. Then Jonah Pezzett comes in and they go head-to-head in the preseason to see who wears that number 7 jumper, to see who wins it. Because we've seen glimpses of Duffy this year, and he's looked really good. His kicking game, he's shown some maturity. I believe he had a starring game for the Magpies in the Q Cup 2 weeks ago in his last game. Bring him in. There's no reason why he shouldn't be getting a crack in this side. And really, I love Adam Reynolds. I've talked about his autobiography. He's won 2 premierships and he was brought from Brisbane to take us to the promised land, and he achieved his objective. This year, his body is shot. He's trying his best, I imagine, inside, but it just does not reflect in his performances anymore. Adam Reynolds needs to go. He needs to retire right now. He needs to just go behind the scenes, take on this halves coaching role that he's going to do. But I know he deserves it. At the same time, the flip side is he's a legend of the game. He's respected in Sydney. He's respected by all fans, Brisbane, Sydney, both sides of the border, for what he's done for South, for what he's done for Brisbane. I guess at the end of the day, you do have to give him that chance. But geez, if we're really thinking about welfare and merit and who really should be there, Adam Reynolds should not be playing that number 7 jumper again for the Broncos, ever. And finally, I think with positional-wise, the number 9, Corey Pakes, he's a nothing burger. I don't know why they persist with Corey Pakes. I don't want to be too harsh, but I just don't see what he offers. He's solid, and that's it. And they keep re-signing him. There were stories a couple of years ago under Kevy he was going to get let go, and then Madge comes in and brings him back. He started, I think, in just about every single game this season. Billy Walters, of course, has returned from his ACL. Looked really good the other night. Made a little break when he did come on. Please start Billy Walters. He's the guy. He's the number 1 hooker at this club. Get him into the starting side and give him a crack for the rest of the year. He's a big chunk of why they did so well last year in that lead up to even get to the position to be into the finals. He is the best hooker at the club, hands down. Corey Pakes is second, and really, Blake Moses is back, as far as I understand. Why is he wasting away in the Q Cup? The guy who was anointed the next Cameron Smith can't even stat play in the NRL right now. Bring Blake Moser on the bench at least. I'd be dropping Corey Pakes. Who's paying for this run that they're on? Madge just seems very content on just keeping all the same players in this team. Gemmet Shibasaki is one who's dropped. He can't drop any of the forwards because there's no one there to fill the gap to step up from the lower grades. He's chopped and changed some outside backs. Why is Corey Pakes all of a sudden, why is he just immune? Your spine is something you need to look at. I see Reece Walsh trying every week. Ezra Mam has actually looked better than he has all year the last couple of weeks, even with their bad results. He looks like he's taken his game at least closer to where it was last year. Adam Reynolds now is gone, and Corey Pakes. No one's talking about Corey Pakes, but I just don't think he's deserved to be this. He's got this mortgage on the number 9 jumper. Madge obviously loves him, or he's got some good blackmail on Madge. That's my rant about the actual team and what I think needs to change heading into at least the rest of this year, heading into the last year. And let me just tell you, thank God for them that the Dragons were so poor to start this year, and they're looking a lot better at the moment. They could have got a win on the weekend. They came very close. They could still jump them. I had a look at the math. They could still jump them if the Broncos lose their next 5 games and Dragons win all theirs. Let me just pull up the ladder again just to make sure I'm not crazy. Right now, the Dragons are last on 10 points. The Tigers, Broncos, and Titans are all on 18 points. Now, points differential-wise, they can't catch them. Negative 273, Dragons are going to win that hands down, although the Broncos have tossed up some pretty poor performances. They're negative 156, so 120 points. But the Broncos could realistically not win a game for the rest of the year. Obviously, I don't expect the Dragons, but mathematically, if we're talking about mathematics, and we did talk about the mathematics of the Broncos winning all their games to make the finals, mathematically, the Dragons could jump the Broncos for the wooden spoon. The Broncos aren't out of the wooden spoon race just yet. There's some more maths for you. Now, on that, and I'm not exaggerating, and I am a Broncos fan, I'm not exaggerating their run. They've got the Dolphins at Suncorp this weekend. I see them losing that game. The Warriors in Suncorp the weekend after. Big New Zealand contingent in Brisbane. They're going to be very well supported. That's going to be a packed-out house. That's a shame, because that would have been one of the games of the season if the Broncos had been in form. Great atmosphere, I imagine they're going to get. Can't see them winning that game. The Raiders in Canberra is the one game, I think, and again, you got to go down to Canberra. Still pretty chilly this time of year and win. Raiders haven't been very good lately, but neither of the Broncos. That's a realistically winnable game. And the Storm at Suncorp. Traditionally, the Broncos bogey team, not so much the last season or two, a tough game. And the Bulldogs finally in Sydney to finish their season, which will be Magic Round preview for them. Sorry, not Magic Round preview. That will be Mad Monday preview for them. I imagine a few players will have clocked out by then in Sydney. I can't see them winning that based on the Dogs being right back in form now. So there you have it. The Broncos could still win the wooden spoon. I said last week they could still win the grand final. I've changed my tune now. Something needs to happen in this off-season. Obviously, the discussions, and we've discussed about it here on this podcast, is that Michael Maguire could get extended for next year. I just don't see in what world that makes sense. He took them to a premiership last year. He's still contracted to the end of next year. Let's see how next year goes. There's no reason in the world. You could talk about, I know AJ we had on the podcast, he talked about stability. But right now, I don't see players outside looking in going, I want to play for Brisbane. They've lost Payne Haas, a generational, if not the GOAT forward of all time. He's gone. Paddy Carrigan, of course, I'm sure people want to play under Paddy. Reece Walsh, I'm sure a lot of backs and halves would love to link in a spine that it features Reece Walsh. But under Madge, you hear the stories. Who really wants to come to this club right now? I just can't see it. I can't see it. And as a Broncos fan, it is just shocking. It needs to be an investigation into just why they fell off and how poorly they fell off. Now, I will just bring in now Tim Henderson, friend of the show, designer, who did help me originally with the logo for season ticket holders. Now, he pulled me up some graphics that he made for me. Now, this is just the Broncos. 31 players used this year. 246 combined games out of 340, 72.35% availability. Just going through the players that have played. Walsh played 14 games. He's missed, 7, 8 games. Karapani, 17. Shibasaki, 14. Stagg, 16. Mariner, 13. Mam, 17. Reynolds, 14. Jensen only played 7. Pakes, 18. That puts him second most, which again highlights I just don't believe that should be the case. Haas has only played 12. Piacora's only played 11. Ricky's played 17. Carrigan's only played 13. Hunt, 15. Willison's been the stud. He is equal with Ben Tolte for 19. And Gashevsky, 10. So pretty disappointing. It's tough for Broncos fan. I had some people message me saying that they're not going to renew their membership next year. Like, that's the legitimate anger that's come out of this. And people out there probably sitting there going, oh, yeah, but you're a Broncos fan, mate. Queenslander, you're an idiot. Like, you won last year. Why are you giving it to Madge? Yeah, I get it. I get that too. You take someone to a premiership, they get a grace period for years, right? But it's more just the way they're playing and the complete lack and the drop-off that they've had. I mean, the Tigers in 2005 are the last team to win it and then completely missed the finals the next year. It's going to be pretty crazy because it looks like the Melbourne Storm are going to do the exact same thing as well. So both teams that played in the premiership last year look set to miss the finals in 2026, which is pretty crazy. And if you had said that just after last year's grand final, not one single person in the entire universe would have believed you. Just like to thank our sponsor, National Freight Management. They can handle everything from pallets through to cartons nationwide. Gerard and the team do a great job there. You can find more information at nationalfreightmanagement.com.au. And don't forget, guys, we are still giving away this New South Wales Blues jersey. I wore it for last week's podcast. Unfortunately, I felt very icky. I had to use Nair all over my body just to get rid of that New South Wales stench. But it is gone now. The jersey is in mint condition, only worn once for that podcast. Still got the tags on it. I did wear a shirt underneath, so it wasn't really touching my skin. It is a large, and there's been plenty of love on the Instagram post and the Facebook post. So the way you can win, guys, if you check us out on Season Ticket Holders on Instagram, Facebook, or on TikTok, there is a post up on all three of those platforms. If you just like their tag a friend and follow or like, you will get one entry per any of those things that you do. It will be drawn this Friday. We'll be at random, and I will let you know. If you're in Sydney, you can pick it up, or maybe we can meet somewhere. If it's anywhere else, I will be able to post it out to you in Australia. So good luck to anyone. One very lucky boy or girl going to win a New South Wales Blues jersey. To the Cowboys. What is there to say, really? Todd Payten said it himself. It was the darkest day ever for North Queensland, going down 82-12, the highest score a team has put on in first grade rugby league in Australia since 1935. It's the third highest score in history here. 70-point loss, of course, the Cowboys' biggest ever. Sam Walcott pulling the strings. The Queensland halfback was the star with 36 points. That's the fourth highest ever. And just to top it all off, the big story, if you've been following throughout the week, was that Tom Dearden potentially was being floated around to Sydney clubs because his partner is pregnant. She lives in Sydney, runs a successful business, and there was a school of thought that obviously they are going to have their first child together. They're obviously doing some sort of long distance arrangement at the moment, that he would want to be close and that she doesn't want to leave and go up to Townsville. It looks like he's trying to put that to bed this week, but that's the story out there. And when there's things like that, there's usually some truth to it. It's been floated around by a bunch of different media organisations. He's going to be on $1 million a year next year, the guy that North Queensland and Todd Payten are building their team around. If he were to leave, it'd be a catastrophic blow. But just the results, 82-12, yeah, what is there to say? I turned it on at halftime and saw there was almost 50, and I couldn't believe it. And then there was a bit of a lull early in the second half, and then they just stormed home. James Tedesco put on absolute masterclass before going off, and then, like I mentioned, Sam Walcott really pulling the strings. He's going to really milk the most out of his next contract. I don't see any way in the world that he doesn't get re-signed by the Roosters at this point, showing what he can do. Like I said, described as the darkest day. Cooper Cronk fears the Cowboys won't recover. That was one of the things he said. And like I said, that is the thing now. Like I said, they're tied for 8. If I'm pulling up the ladder, they were right in the 8 last week. Now, there are 3 teams on 26 points. The Rabbitohs, the Bulldogs, and the Cowboys. Rabbitohs have a 62-plus points differential. Bulldogs is negative 44. And due to that loss now, Cowboys have slipped all the way down to a negative 98. So that's the crucial thing that could come back to haunt them now after that massive loss. Because they're going to need to probably finish 2 points higher than a team. If they're tied with anyone, then even the Manly, who's 24 points, they're 2 points below outside the 8. They're on plus 90. So if they end up even with the Seagulls, they're going to take them. Even if you go one further back and the Raiders somehow stage a miraculous run, they're on 22 points, a further 4 points back. They're only negative 59 as well. So the Cowboys are probably going to need to win an extra game to try and finish in that top 8. And the fact you've got the Bulldogs in form, the Knights who look like they're still going to be a contender, or at least really competitive, or maybe the Broncos are just that bad. But, despite the loss of Brown and Lucas, and then South is probably the one that could slip out. There's obviously this story now about Latrell seeing a specialist and potentially not coming back again this year. That's one team they could potentially jump, but you can't write out the Seagulls either. So that's the top 8 battle. It is going to be very interesting and, catastrophic for the 2 traditional Queensland teams and the Cowboys and the Broncos. It does go to show that game the week before where it was a close win by the Cowboys. Maybe just the Broncos and Cowboys are just really far off the pace right now, or maybe they just got up for each other. But yeah, pretty disappointing. Cowboys captain Ruben Cotter said it was the most embarrassing game he'd ever been a part of. And just shocking. So the Cowboys are going to have to pull it out. And I just don't know if they can now. Psychologically, how do you come back from conceding that many points in first grade professional rugby league in this day and age? The fact that it hasn't happened since the 30s tells you everything you need to know, almost 100 years. I don't know if they can bounce back. I'd love to see them do it because there's always a soft part of me as a Queenslander that Cowboys are sort of my default second team a little bit, even after the 2015 grand final. But it is going to be tough for them now. And then finally, because this is a discussion about the breakdown of Queensland Rugby League, the Titans, another team, they're of course tied with the Broncos, but above them on points differential now. This was supposed to be a new era under Josh Hannay, but it just hasn't happened for them. They've blooded some young talent. Now, I did see they've re-signed a lot of stars. Actually, sorry, I did forget one thing for the Cowboys. They are going to get Sione Katoa and Jesse Ramian next year, but lose Scott Drinkwater, as we know. But it's like they're taking the entire right edge from the Sharks. That's not a bad thing. So that is one plus for the Cowboys. And then looking through the Titans' roster management, recruitment-wise, they've done really well. They've re-signed Jaden Campbell, Beau Fermor, Cleese Haas, and Arama Ho. Now, that's four good young players that are a core of this team. Like Zane Harrison, the half that they brought in, he's done really well as well. But it's the same old Titans. Nothing's really changed this year. On their day, they can put on some points and they can be an exciting attacking team when you've got the likes of Keanu Kinney and Jaden Campbell in your team. But they went down 42-6 on Saturday against the Wars, who bounced right back into form. I know, because I didn't play Tamari Martin in my Supercoach team. Still absolutely kicking myself. Scored 130. I feel disgusting about that. Idiota. We'll just have to see how they go. Alongside the Broncos, both teams have actually conceded 501 points, which is really quite shocking. Like, I just don't know how that happens. It's disappointing for the Broncos, Titans, and Cowboys that they have thrown up those three results all in 1 week. That is a sad thing. 82-12 Roosted Cowboys, 42-6 Wars Titans, 30-6 Knights Broncos. 4 tries. Yuck. Plus side is, if you're a Dolphins fan, which I'm definitely not, being a lifelong young Brisbane Bronco, 28-22 over the Dragons. And Dolphins, I mean, you'd want a bit more. I mean, Dragons have been better, to be fair, in recent weeks. They seem to have gotten better as the season goes on. The Couchman brothers are incredible. Very funny as well. Hamaso Tabuai Fido, I want to see a bit more from you. Scored an early try, but I just don't know. Tommy Flegler, love to see the Tully Banana Bender score. Selton Cobbo has been incredible this year too. He's really found a new life and home at the Dolphins, and this will be their first finals appearance. I don't see any world where they don't, despite losing 66-0 to the Sharks a few weeks ago, I don't see any world in which they don't make the top 8 this year. It'd have to be a catastrophic collapse, and as a Broncos fan, I do know all about those too. 2024. And I do believe that they're going to be the only Queensland team to make the finals in 2026. Clip it up. We lost the Origin series, but maybe the Dolphins could win the premiership. Probably not. I don't really believe that either. And finally, guys, good or bad for fans, I was just going to go through a few of these now. Billy Slater has been spotted at halftime in the Melbourne Storm sheds. Could he be coaching the Melbourne Storm next year? Craig Bellamy, of course, has some health concerns. They've kept it very hush-hush. It's up in the air. I did see some mail that the Storm officials do think Bellamy is going to be back. He's looked a lot better in recent weeks. Good or bad for fans? I think it would be very cool for fans if Billy Slater were to coach in the NRL. I could only really see it be the Melbourne Storm. I just feel like that's the way the stars have aligned. As a Queenslander, very upset and disappointed if he weren't to be the coach. But I think it'd be awesome to see him in the NRL week in, week out, and just to see if he can make it. I have high props on him. I think I did a reel earlier this year that he was going to go down as one of the great Queensland coaches of all time, better than Mao. But that loss obviously did hurt in Game 3. He's now 3-2 in the series, but I still think he's an incredible coach. I think it'd just be cool to see him tested at the NRL level to see if he is that good, because we're never going to know how good a coach he is until he coaches in the NRL. The other big news, in good or bad for fans, Laurie Daly, worst kept secret in rugby league, did officially stand down this week. And it looks like Matt King, who has been the assistant there for a few years, will be announced on a new deal, a new 2-year deal. That's good for New South Wales fans. And look, I think it's bad for Queensland fans, because I remember when Laurie got announced, I think there was a bit of a chuckle north of the border, myself included, thinking, him again, really? I know they broke the drought back in 2014 with Trent Hodkinson and Josh Reynolds. But Laurie was always an interesting choice. So very surprised that that's what they decided to do and bring him back. So Matt King, I think, is probably a thing that Queenslanders should be a bit more scary about. He's a bit untested, but I think moving on for Laurie was just a good thing. And I think that's the best thing they could have done. Whether he stood down or he was pushed, I know he rubbished that story about health claims. He said he was very upset that that came out in some News Corp media. But Matt King being the coach, that is good for New South Wales fans, bad for Queensland fans. PNG's salary cap advantage. Wayne Bennett slammed it at South Presser over the weekend, said it was unfair. Obviously, they've just signed Zach Lomax. The Cam Munster news is not going away because he was planning to tour the facilities. He could potentially join Jerome Luai. That'd be an interesting halves combination. Not really sure how that worked because it'd be 2 6s trying to play. But stranger things have happened. And Joey Manu, of course, looks like I'd be shocked if he doesn't end up signing there as well. Coming back from rugby union. Wayne Bennett is right, and it is going to keep going this way. It is unfair. Now, what fans is it good for? Because it's awesome for PNG fans. The only country in the world where rugby league is the national sport. But is it going to be good for fans when, let's just assume they do pull off this super team and they have Lomax and Munster and Manu and Lomax, and they fill it with some good forwards. Maybe they take like a Brian To'o, Isaiah Yeo from Penrith. Maybe they can't take Nathan Cleary. But, maybe they do take some few big guns from elsewhere and patch together this team of really good rep quality experience from 1 to 13. Lit it in with some good, nice, young, local talent. It would be bad for Australian fans because if the best team and half the best players in the comp are playing in PNG every week, I mean, it's not the best thing for fans. And if your team offers someone a contract, but they can go get double to go and play in PNG, is that fair? I mean, Wayne Bennett's right. It's totally not fair. And it's not really an issue now because no one's probably thinking about it too much. And, Jerome Luai and everything that's happened at that club, Jerome Luai fans probably aren't too upset. But, what happens when he does start taking some big guys? What if you're the Roosters and he snatches Sam Walker? He's at the Broncos and they snatch Reece Walsh. Things like that. If that starts to happen, that's a different story. Right now, they're going for more established, older talent. But what happens when they rip out someone who's really in their form in their mid-20s? It reminds me of how, the Saudi Arabian football leagues are taking, Cristiano Ronaldo and, a lot of older players. But, what happens if that starts happening and they start taking some of the young best players out of the Premier League? That's when you have to worry. Now, that hasn't happened yet either. But it's a possibility. Good or bad for fans? I mean, it's probably bad for fans. I want to see it success. I do want to see it succeed, but they're getting all this government money already. On top of that, the salary cap thing. I think it's awesome to start, but if they were going to get it, I feel like Perth should have got a lot more help as well because you want to see that team succeed first, and they're in the league first. There you go. This one was a very interesting, and I'll wrap up the show this week with this, but it's the Media Police. Danny Wilder broke it in the Sydney Morning Herald article, and that's it. The NRL is looking at employing an ex-judge or lawyer, that type of thing, to help crack down on conflicts of interests in rugby league. And you see it a lot. Braithen Astor's on NRL 360, but he's also the manager of Cam Munster, for example. Lachlan Ilias, most famously. Matty Johns hosts his show, and, he's got a stake in the Titans. There's things like that across the board. And look, it's okay. I'm not saying that any of that stuff is wrong. No way at all. But, there obviously are going to be issues when, is the criticism warranted or unwarranted, or what's the real core of it? It's a murky issue. So I don't know. Anyway, employing someone like that to do that is probably a good thing. But the other side was that it could also involve policing the media. Policing commentators that are perceived to be too negative in their coverage. That was the quote. Perceived to be too negative in their coverage. And if they are deemed to have broken the rules, which apparently, according to the article, was signed off on by networks, and when they say networks, I assume they mean Channel 7, 9, 10, Fox Sports, the TV networks. If they are deemed to have broken the rules, they could be removed from their roles after an investigation by an independent figure who would determine whether they should be removed. Now, if this isn't some George Orwell 1984 stuff, I don't know what is. The NRL under Peter V'landys do make some whack claims sometimes. Usually turns out to be right, or it normally turns out to be the right move. I don't like this one. This one does not sound good to me. It irks me. It makes me feel a little bit icky. It feels like an overreach a little bit from the NRL. I like the conflict of interest part, don't get me wrong. I think that is right. There does probably need to be more controlling or just sort of awareness of that. But any talk of cracking down on negative coverage in the media is a no-go. We live in Australia. We live in a free media society where we are free to say what we want in the media. I work in the media. For the full disclosure, you all know that I work for Fox Sports News. But if there is any type of sort of crackdown because of negative coverage, I mean, the whole point of the media is to tell the stories, the good and the bad, the positive and the negative. You don't just tell one side. That's PR. That's what happens when you don't tell both sides of the story. You're public relations, you're pumping someone up, you're praising something, you're neglecting to tell the negative side. Life is positive and negative. Media is positive and negative. Any talk, and look, this is all very early days, and this is just one report. So whether this was the actual intention or not, or maybe this was a media ploy, what some people do is they float things like that to see the reaction from the general public. But if this is on the hammer, if this is on the money, if this is the plan that's being discussed by Peter V'landys, I'd be very worried because I don't like the sound of it one single second as someone who works in the media, because we should be free and able to be able to say what we believe in, what we think is true, what's an opinion, what to report on. And when there's any sort of say from anyone that you can't do those things, then we all should be very concerned about the future and where things are going, because rugby league and NRL are in a great place right now, and it's awesome to see. They're the form code in Australia for one of the first times ever. They've overtaken the AFL as far as interest and money and TV rights deal. No, they don't beat their participation numbers and their national reach in the average attendances and that type of thing. But right now, if you're just going on form codes, the one that has the interest, the one that seems to be on the up, it's quite clearly NRL right now. And I think that's the first time we could probably have ever said that. So, my long-winded point there was, if this is true, this is a terrible, terrible thing for fans. This should not happen in any free modern media society, and especially not in Australia. We've always been able to speak our minds, and we've never really had too many issues like that. So we don't want to see any sort of dictatorship as far as what people can say. It's wrong. And on that note, thank you very much, guys. That is it. Please help me. Give us a like and follow. 5-star rating on Apple and Spotify if you like the show. If you haven't liked our social media pages too, please go on there and check us all out. It'd be a big help. I would really appreciate the support. And we've had the Blues jersey giveaway and the good people at National Freight Management. Who knows what will line up in the future. As always, take care, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.